Seviyorum gerçekten ve bunlar bayağı büyümüş. Henüz
Vale.
Okay, I think that it's time to start. Hello to everyone. This webinar today, and thank you also for your participation in this webinar. I see that the number of participants is increasing, but it's time to start. Thank you also the speakers of this webinar, Mr. Xavier Ronald Kikaro from FEFIT, Spain, and Mrs. Svetlana Dimitrova from Sofia University. This webinar is focused today on intersectoral mobility and the mentoring schemes. After this webinar, you'll be able and more aware about the opportunities concerning the mentoring schemes and the other measures that the Euraxis network adopt and implement in order to facilitate the intersectoral mobility of researchers, either at European level, either at level of researcher coming in Europe. So we'll present the ERA Talent Hub focused on research and career behind academia, the Rebecca Scheme mentoring program, and also the Rebecca Hub, which is established within the framework of the current ERA Talent project of the Euraxis. Afterwards, Mrs. Svetlana will present the Shape the Future of Researcher mentoring scheme, and Mr. Xavi will conclude with presenting some tips concerning how to launch and implement a successful mentoring scheme. I would like at this point to inform you that the webinar will be recorded and afterwards will be uploaded on the Euraxis portal. And also I would like to let you know that as you see in the agenda, we have a link where you can submit your comments on this webinar to suggest some more topics for forthcoming webinars, as well as to suggest us how to be better. Okay, I can control and check the questions on the chat, and at the end we have the opportunity to ask a question or some more info to the speakers. Thank you. So we start with Ms. Xavi from FEFIT.
Okay, so Fotini, thank you very much for the invitation. And although I will have, I mean, you will be listening to me quite some time along these 2.5 hours, and I will try to address all the points mentioned by Fotini. I might be mixing a little bit the contents between the different parts of the section, because I think that we also have kind of a mixed audience here. So we've got, I'm assuming, I've seen quite a number of Euraxis colleagues and other representatives of institutions, but I guess that there might be also some researchers. So I hope that I will provide a bit of interesting information to all of you. So I will start with the first part, which is, let's say, how would you call it? The formal framework of where the Rebecca mentoring, which is focused on helping researchers making a transition from traditional academic research careers to other positions where researchers we know are extremely useful, and their skills can be used. But first of all, a little bit of let's say, as I said, a little bit of a theoretical framework or a history of how we got here, or how we got here, what we are trying to do collectively. So this goes by the story of how the Rebecca Hub, the Researchers Beyond Academia Hub, has taken shape, and the next steps that we are doing, of course, including with a strong focus on the mentoring program itself. So I hope you can see my slides. Maybe you can confirm, Fotini, that they are all in presentation mode and everything is fine?
We see it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so as I said, probably all of you know this already, but I think it's an important piece of information that we should remind everybody, especially if we have researchers in the room. So EURAXES is an initiative which is launched by the European Commission, and normally a lot of people are pretty much aware of the EURAXES jobs database, but the only thing that I would like to highlight is that behind the initiative, there's a lot of people working in the national networks, which are composed by EURAXES service centers. As you can see there, it's a total of 42 national networks, so basically covering all of Europe in a very wide understanding, and more than 600 EURAXES centers providing services at different levels for the researchers and for the institutions. I think there is a microphone open somewhere, so if you can please mute it unless you want to drop me a question, which I'm more than happy to take at any moment. I would really appreciate it. Thank you. So what about the initiative itself? The initiative has already quite let's say, a history behind it. So it started even before the times of EURAXES, which could date back to 2008. And this is quite a simplistic evolution of the initiative, which provides me an argument for presenting how we got to the EURAXES Hubs into the mentoring program. So starting from a core mission, which was about facilitating mobility towards within and out and outgoing of Europe, we have this network of service centers, as I said, providing these services to researchers in terms of mobility, mostly, at least at the start of the initiative. And then we are an initiative which tries to put its contribution to having an open market of researchers in Europe, which is mostly visualized by the database of EURAXES jobs, where you can find published opportunities, professional opportunities for researchers. But then we also have a bit of work on our desks, which has to do with trying to support institutions themselves to improve their human resources management policies. And in more recent times, our mandate was, as an initiative, was widened into also taking into consideration researcher career development as a whole. And of course, international mobility is a part of the researcher professional development. And it's intersectoral mobility, which is the topic of this webinar, has, to be honest, has always been on the mandate of EURAXES since the beginning of times. Since we started talking about mobility, it was intersectoral mobility also there. Also, when we talked about open market, EURAXES Jobs is a platform which is open basically to any kind of organization. So we do our efforts to also try to bring in opportunities, professional opportunities for researchers from the non-academic sector, including industry, of course. But as I said, in the most recent times, when the mandate was increased towards this more holistic approach of researcher career development, it's when we have been seeing more attempts to actually provide this support, particularly in helping researchers transitioning from academia to non-academic settings. So these pictures, which I borrowed from my colleague Elisa, that she likes to use in the presentation, but it's a very good representation of probably the situation that a researcher might find himself or herself at any given moment within an academic career, but particularly when it's time to transition. People don't know. I mean, it feels a little bit like jumping there to avoid, without knowing exactly what's down there. And it's quite usual that you get kind of this panic attack that you can see there in the painting. So I'm assuming that anybody who has gone through a transition has probably felt this. So what are we supposed to do as an initiative, or what we can try to foster to support researchers when they find themselves in this position of taking this leap into the unknown world of the non-academic careers? The thing is that this feeling is particularly, as I said, I mean, this situation applies to any professional transition, but it applies probably even more in the case of researchers when you have to leave the traditional academic research career. And there are several reasons of why this happens. On one hand, there is a general feeling that we hear from researchers is that when a researcher finds in himself or herself in the situation of having to move outside of academia, they kind of feel like it's they're going countercurrent. So you have all fishes there that would follow a traditional academic career, and then somebody who's going to make a transition to other parts might think that they are let's say the stranger there, the one who's doing the strange thing. And actually, to support this, we have their results from a previous Euraxis project in which also Svetlana with other colleagues collaborated. And there we saw that it's quite usual that researchers starting an academic research career actually start an academic research career thinking that they want to continue in an academic research career. This may be changing in recent times, but I think it's quite fair to say that this still happens quite often in early stage researchers. But the truth is that even if you feel like you are the rare bird who is going to make the leap to another sector, by numbers, the thing is that you are actually part of the majority because there is a truth which cannot be argued against, and this may change a little bit depending on the sector. It may change a little bit depending on the country, but the reality is that the majority of the people who start in research academic career, meaning, for example, working on a PhD, will not be able to stay in academia. It will eventually, at some point in their careers, move to another place. I always use that scheme that you see there with the red arrows, which is a study which was done in UK many, many, many years ago. And the data, the percentages, as I said, may change because of the time since this was made. It may change depending on your sector, and it may change depending on your country. But the reality is that still a minority of the people are able to stay in academic careers because there's only space for a minority of the people who start a research career. And then one last thing that we also want to highlight in order to start fighting this feeling that you are the stranger, the rare bird that is going to make that change, is that the few studies that are out there, and in Euraxis we also try to reach people, to alumni, people who had a research career at some point and now they're doing something completely different in their professional life. The thing is that once the change is made, we find that a huge majority of the people are actually quite satisfied with the change. So first piece of information in terms of intersectoral mobility and for supporting intersectoral mobility of researchers is that you are not alone there. You're a researcher who's going to transition, and actually the future outside of academia might not be so dark as you might initially expect. Why do we find these trends, or why do we think, what's the diagnosis of why these trends, we're still fighting against them? As I said, in recent times, we have made the question about how many people doing a PhD are thinking to change, and you start to see a lot of people who are actually doing a PhD thinking about going to some other settings, to some other professional settings. But again, generally speaking, what happens is that people who are very specialized in their research, they have a narrow view of their professional potential, and they feel a little bit like that fax that you see there, like a machine which is outdated, which can only work for sending faxes in this case. But another piece of important information to tackle this support is that obviously as a researcher, you gather a number of skills and abilities which are completely applicable and very useful in other professional settings. And in that sense, you see there some examples of things that you might be more or less familiarized with, which are frameworks of skills. The most recent one, the one that you can see there in different colors, in which I include the link, which is the research comp published last year, precisely to let's say, allow people to assess their skills and plan their professional development in order to advance in their professional careers. Another thing, apart from this thought that maybe after working for a couple of years in a lab or something like that, or in the bench, you might not be ready for working in other professional settings. Another of the diagnoses that we usually see is that people, when they start, especially early stage researchers, when they start as an academic researcher, they see their professional future, as you can see in the slide. So basically, just to continue, I get my PhD, I go to a postdoc, maybe to a postdoc in a different country, and eventually I will get a tenure track and a permanent position at some academic organization. But the reality is this one, and it's that from an academic research career, there are many other places where people may be able to transition and apply the knowledge that they have gained during their experience as an academic researcher. So again, stealing some pictures from my colleague Elisa, this is a little bit the kind of view that an early stage researcher tends to have, which when they think about career progressions, they see that their future is kind of like a stairs. So there's only one way of advancing, which is up. But the reality is that it's really more a scaffold than a stairs. So you can, of course, continue up, but you can also move sideways. You can go to other positions within the academic setting, doing other things than academic research, but also to other sectors, of course. And this is what we are trying to somehow tackle. So again, from a general perspective and thinking in terms of professional development, this is not very different from what you could also do if you're planning to continue the steps in sort of the stair approach, which is in the academic career. We need researchers to do basically 3 steps. The first one is about self-assessment. And there, self-assessment is basically about analyzing or reflecting on the decisions that one has made. So I'm going to mention a couple of tools, including some of them which have been developed in Euraccess in the last years. So of course you have this possibility of speaking with peers, of revisiting yourself, which was your motivation for doing research, what do you like and what you don't about your current academic research position, and what you would like to have in future positions. So this is a key exercise that we must, as supporters of professional development of researchers, should facilitate researchers to do. As I said, there are some tools out there in the Euraccess realm, but also beyond. I include here a few links which might be useful for any researchers. Of course, I'm more than happy to send the presentations afterwards, so you can check these things on your own with your time. But you have, for example, My IPD, which again is an exercise. I mean, it's a tool, an online tool, which allows to do precisely these 3 steps, including, of course, the first one of self-assessment, but the next 2 steps that I will also mention. Same applies, for example, to this toolkit, which you might also be familiarized with, which again bases on taking stock, assessing your academic career progress, and of course, considering other career options. And as I said, as Euraccess as an initiative, since a number of years ago, we have been trying to put our contributions into these resources to help with this transition. So here you have a link, for example, to a tool which was created some time ago, which we think might be particularly useful if it's your first approach to planning your professional development. And it provides you, it's the kind of tool that provides you or facilitates this reflection that I mentioned 2 slides ago about thinking what you are doing now, what you like about it, what was your motivation to get there, what you don't not like so much, and things that you could do in order to face an eventual transition in your professional life. The second step is knowing what are the options, because as I was telling you, it's quite often that we have this very narrow view of only academic, the next academic research position that we can go for. But then there are other opportunities. But of course, this needs to be explored somehow. And again, there are a number of tools, including some of Euraccess that you can find out there. This would be one of the traditional ones, which is Imagine PhD, which has an overview. This is specialized especially for social sciences and humanities. And it provides a little bit of an overview of other professional positions that a researcher coming from those areas could attempt to go for. And as I said, from the side of Euraccess, also in the framework of Euraccine, we worked a little bit on trying to give this visibility by collecting some information on labor market, what you can find there also in the link, and it tries to make some matchings between scales that we assume that researchers have with what is deemed as useful in these different sectors, economic sectors. And we've also been, some of our colleagues, particularly our Israel colleagues, have been also working on the part of collecting, let's say, testimonials. So knowing from other professionals who have made the transition to understand what they are doing now, how they are doing it, what they have learned from their academic research career, what kind of skills and abilities they're currently using in their positions. So we also got some information there in the shape of podcasts and also as written interviews of people who have made a transition. And last but not least, as part of this effort to learning what is out there available or potentially available for an academic researcher who wants to transit or needs to transit, we launched this mentoring program. I include there a quick introduction to the first 2 editions that we had, because we have already been running this mentoring program as a pilot starting in a project a couple of years ago, coordinated by our great colleagues, including Potini. And we have made this, let's say, it started as a pilot in the framework of a European project. I will provide a bit more of detail later when I focus on the mentoring. But then it has transformed into, let's say, an institutional initiative in the case of FEFIT. So we have been repeating it basically almost every year, year and a half. And the last opportunity that one should address when thinking about any kind of career transition is that, of course, you need to create the opportunities. You need to first understand where you are and what you want to do. You need to understand what's out there in order to be realistic on what you want to do. But then you have to create the opportunities. And once again, here you have a number of things, a number of tools. I include a few of them, of course, putting some emphasis into things that we have been doing as Euraxis as an initiative for the recent years. So we have trainings, we have webinars and things like that. Like, for example, this session here that we try to share in the Euraxis portal in order for anybody to check out the videos if necessary. And then, of course, the portal itself, when it tries to work a little bit as a kind of social tool. So if you are a registered user of Euraxis, you will be aware that we have this section of partnering, which has the idea behind it of precisely facilitating contacts. Of course, contacts of academic researchers wanting to continue an academic career, so with academic institutions, but also we try to send this message that this is open to other kinds of institutions, of organizations, including industry and other non-academic sectors. So I get to the last part of my presentation, and is that after showing you this would be a little bit the picture aligned with that evolution of the initiative. So we have been putting there some pieces of this puzzle in order to try to do it. But a couple of years ago, we also had the opportunity of thinking, how can we do this in a more coordinated way? And this is where this approach of the hubs became an opportunity to try to do this in a more coordinated way. So what is an Euraxis hub? Basically, as I told you, the Euraxis initiative is structured. You would present it normally with this, how I did it at the very beginning of the presentation. We have national networks, and each national network has an Euraxis centers, which are hosted within different organizations which have to do with the national R&D&I ecosystem. But the thing is that the mandate of Euraxis is extremely wide. I mean, we go from international mobility to anything that has to do with research career, professional development, or career development. So not every service center is specialized in the same topic. And this is where this concept of the Euraxis hubs come. So the idea is to try to break a little bit this way of working only from the side of the national approach, from the national network. So Euraxis Spain provides this support, Euraxis Bulgaria provides this support, Euraxis Greece provides this support, and try to bring together service centers, no matter if they're national coordinators, if they're local contact points, whatever, no matter what level within the network, but who are specialized or have an interest in a given topic. These people normally, through their activities, through their specialized services, they probably have their own set of their own network in order to provide these services. And the idea is to try to bring together these people, these Euraxis centers, and the stakeholders with whom they work, to try to bring them together in order to share their practices, to improve their practices, and also to help other Euraxis centers to work in a particular topic. So we came up with this idea of the researcher careers beyond academia hub. And just to put it in a focus, the aim that we have under this hub is to facilitate the transition of researchers from academic careers to non-academic research careers. And what are we trying to tackle? Well, basically, we are aware, this has been worked in the bibliography and the literature for quite some time. I mean, people have been working in this for a long time, and the diagnosis is quite clear. There are, let's say, gaps or barriers at different levels, at the level of the individual, the institution, and the systemic. So at the level of the systemic, obviously, there is room, or we can think about doing activities which have to do with putting together academic organizations with non-academic organizations, because from the side of the institutions in the non-academic sector, we are aware that it's quite often that companies or NGOs or anything that comes from the non-academic organization, they might also not be so aware about the values of hiring somebody with a research background, with a PhD, the kind of skills that they can bring into and the kind of knowledge and work culture that they can bring into the institution. So things that can be done at systemic and institutional level. But from the side of the academic organizations, we also notice that there is areas where one can think too of implementing actions in order to tackle these barriers. On one hand, institutions do as much as they can, but normally it's not as much as they need to do. This happens in every country and every institution to some level. So with this idea of having limited resources to supporting transitions from the side of the hub, we also have the aim not only of supporting researchers through our activities, but also supporting institutions to, let's say, uptake or design their own support services. And this is a little bit the strong focus of what the things that I will be talking about today. And then, of course, at the individual level, I already provided some hints when I was introducing sort of the traditional view of an early stage researcher, is that there is a lack of knowledge about what are the non-academic careers that they could opt to. So they could follow after having experience as an academic researcher. There is also a lack of role models, the people who have transitioned. So that's where the testimonials and so on that I've mentioned come in. And they also might have, let's say, a limited knowledge about how to sell or how to put in value the things that they certainly know how to do because of their academic career in order to sell them to other professional settings. So this is a little bit the target that we're following with the academic hub.
Okay.
I'm the one who's talking here representing FEFIT, which is the Spanish coordinator, because we, for the time being, we are leading this hub because it just happened like that because we had the mentoring program running. And then we started putting together efforts from other organizations. So currently there we have some other, a quick view of some other partner, obviously from Bulgaria, like Svetlana, so from the Netherlands, from Slovakia, Ireland, and all of us doing our little things, which have to do with supporting transition of researchers, and we try to put them together in the shape of this hub. The starting point was actually 3 activities, the mentoring program, which will be the focus of today's event, but then we also decided to put together a kind of online, we call it a kind of alumni page or a community, an online community, which we built using LinkedIn, with a focus on anything that has to do with researcher careers beyond academia. And then we also made some pilots in a previous project, the Node Access Hubs, of a matchmaking event, basically putting together companies, industry, with researchers in order to better understand on the side of the researchers, of course, what the companies are doing and what kind of profiles they're looking for, but also with the hope that the companies will be, let's say, informed about the value, the added value of looking for to recruit among academic researchers. This has, let's say, we have an online presence, which is currently hosted in the Spanish portal, because as I said, we are currently leading this hub. And we have tried to put there all the information. As I said, separated resources directly for researchers, but also information for research organizations in order to design their own activities. And just, this is my last slide of this first part. Currently, we have continued after this first Node Access Hub. So we have the privilege of working in another horizontal EU-funded project, this case coordinated by the Italian national coordinators of Node Access APRE. And there we have this project, sort of like any European project with work packages and so on, but we have pieces here and there of activities that we are doing directly as FEFIT in order to further increase or to continue building this Rebecca Hub, but also we have some activities being done by other partners, like the ones that I showed you there in the previous figure. So we got some podcasts. We will have a peer mentoring pilot. We will come up with a number of what we call Rebecca Practice, which will be we hope to have published by the middle of this year, by this summer. With also a career exploration tool. And then we have some colleagues who are still putting together local and national research to business networking events. And we will continue together with led by our Irish colleague with this community, online community in the platform LinkedIn. And that would be it for the time being. So we're still working on the hub. We're still doing things. And we still have some path to go, but we're hoping that this way we will be able, as an initiative, to provide better support to intersectoral mobility. So that would be it from my side in terms of EURAX's hub and a bit, as I said, the theoretical framework. I don't know, Fotini, if there are any questions regarding this part, or you want us to jump directly into the mentoring programs.
No, there is no question in the chat, Xavi, so we continue with your next presentation.
Okay.
Thank
So thank you very much. Okay, so the Rebecca mentoring, as I said, it has become, for us, it was sort of one of the building blocks of the Rebecca Hub. But now I will focus on what we are trying to do with the mentoring program and how we try to tackle those different steps of eventual career transition that I've mentioned in my previous slide. Here I will already put forward some, let's say, key messages based on our experience thinking in any kind of institution or support service, which might be thinking of running a similar mentoring program. And later, in my last presentation after the other mentoring program, I will focus a little bit more on the mentor-mentee relationship side in terms of key messages also for a successful mentoring program. So as a continuation of what I said before, why the Rebecca, why the researchers beyond academia? Well, the idea is supporting the diversification of research careers. And why we think, or not only we as FEFIT, or not even we as EURAXES, but we as the European Union think that diversification of research careers is important, is in order to support the employability of the researchers themselves, because as I said, because of a number, just a matter of numbers, there is no capacity in academia to absorb all the people that start in academic research careers. But we also try to tackle through people the idea of building these bridges between the public and the private sector and to foster collaboration through the people. And also, of course, this is a way of bringing science closer to society. So this is why we think that the diversification of research careers is an important effort that we must tackle as EURAXES. And how do we do it? In this case, we do it by mentoring. And the first thing that I would like to highlight is that the way that our mentoring program works is that we run the program we open a call, we collect the participants, mentees and mentors, a bit more of information on a couple of slides from now. And we run the program for 6 months and eventually close it and open a new call. And the first thing that we would like to highlight is that although industry is a big part, a very important part of the non-academic sector, we are going further than that. As I said, as a hub, and of course, as a mentoring program, which is part of that hub, our focus is on helping a transition towards other professional settings. So from the side of the researchers, from the side of the mentors, from the side of the researchers, we have early stage researchers who are participating, which means basically people working on their PhD up to early postdocs. And from the side of the non-academic mentors, we have the private sector, including, of course, R&D departments and industry, which is by default maybe is what people first think when they think about transitioning to another sector. But we also have other roles, and we have other professionals acting as mentors within the private sector, people in the sales department, who are, like, for example, field application specialists, which need to have an academic background in order to do that work, medical departments in pharma industry, and of course, marketing departments such as medical writers. But then we also have another very important sector, which is part for us of the non-academic sector, which is the public sector. So putting it in a very blunt and simplistic way, we're thinking about R&D managers, which may have very different shapes, from project managers, EU project managers, international officers, tech transfer, and so on. And also other management positions within academic institutions. So, and finally, we should not forget about the possibility of having professionals working in the third sector, such as advisory professionals and advocacy professionals. So all of these profiles are currently participating in the current edition of the Rebecca Mentoring. Pieces of information from our Rebecca program. in our case, this is fully based on altruism. So we do not pay for the mentors. So we make this very clear from the very beginning. And basically what we look for is that people who are willing to support early stage researchers. And in most of these cases, as the mentors, independently of all those sectors, all those positions that I've mentioned before, almost all of them have had an academic research, at least going to the level of PhD. It's not mandatory to participate, but we do ask people to be aware of what an academic career is. So if you have gone through an academic career and did the transition, normally you are quite sensitized towards the fact that this kind of support is still needed for early stage researchers. So this is a powerful message, and which has proven to be quite successful for us in order to recruit mentors in the different editions that we have had up until now. And considering this idea of supporting career diversification as a general, the specific objectives that we try to tackle through the mentoring program is to help those early stage researchers to be exposed to other professional settings. So basically, obviously, directly from their mentors, but also through other activities. And we hope, as I said, that this would also facilitate this relationship between private and public sector, and facilitate the networking among the mentees with their mentor, with other mentors, and create this network of intersectoral, intergenerational, and intercultural nature. We had a quick historical view from the side of the program. As I said, we started this way back in 2019 as a pilot. We implemented it at national level, but with the collaboration of other national coordinators who participated with us in the project. So each of us, we came together with, let's say, with the basics of what the program, how the program would run. And then each of us attempted different approaches in recruiting mentors, mentees, and so on at national level. In the case of Spain, it turned out to be, as I said, very successful. We received very high levels of satisfaction from the participants. And our institution, FECIT, decided to take this on board as an institutional activity that we would try to do in repeated editions. So in 2021, we came up again outside the scope of any European project, outside the framework of any European project, with a second edition of the mentoring program. And in this case, although it still had a strong national flavor in terms of people being located in Spain or having a Spanish nationality but working in other places. So we used it also as a collaboration tool with the associations, well, the diaspora, scientific diaspora associations, which in Spain are organized within a network which is called RAITEX. So FECIT, in its role of Euraccess Spain, together with RAITEX, organized the second mentoring program. And then in the framework of the Euraccess Hub that I mentioned before, and already it's thinking about this hub approach, which by nature has to be transnational, we again launched the third edition in the framework of a European project of Euraccess Hubs. And in this case, we opened it up to participants from different countries. The mentees and mentors came. Basically, we still had, and I'll show you afterwards the figures of the current edition, we still have a very strong flavor in the program, because already after 4 years, we sort of have already a kind of branding, and people are waiting already in Spain to participate in the program. So we are at this point quite successful in recruiting participants. But as I said, we open it to participants located in other European and EVI and part of them, and also in third countries. These are the results of the last edition, this transnational approach, but still we have seen in the 3 previous editions that the numbers are pretty much the same. On the side of the early stage researchers, we see that people are extremely satisfied with the program itself. They are in favor of recommending the program. And one thing that we like to see is that there are strong plans of keeping in touch with their mentors. And from the side of the mentors, and this has been happening, and it's also a matter of pride for us, is that the mentors themselves have already, have even higher levels of satisfaction than the mentees. But the thing that we are, I would dare to say, most proud about of the results that we have seen is that one thing that we learned from the pilot in 2019 is that we needed to measure some kind of impact. So obviously, measuring long-term impact has very difficult because you have all these kinds of GDPR restrictions and so on, which prevent you from keeping people engaged and bombing them with emails. But at least what we have been doing since the second edition is that we have posed a number of questions to the mentees before the mentoring program started, and then post the same question exactly at the end of the mentoring program to see what have been their advance. So I'm going to share you just 4 key questions, which are very much related with the gaps that I've mentioned in my previous slides. And you can see there the increase of, for example, the knowledge about the opportunities outside. You see that the people, the mentees who agreed that they were aware about the possibilities beyond academic professional careers increases enormously before and after Rebecca. The same applies to let's say, their level of self-awareness in regards to the skills and abilities that they have in order to go for a non-academic professional career. And the same applies in the case of how they perceive that their experience is useful, their experience in their academic research is useful for other settings, and also about the knowledge on the resources and the information that is out there in order to make a transition. So we see that at least in short term, the mentoring program is having a very significant impact in the mentees that are participating there. And the last thing, as I said, one thing we shouldn't forget is that Eudexis is not only about supporting the researchers, but also about supporting the institutions to be able to support their own researchers. So all of the things that I've been telling you, I mean, I've been giving this presentation for many times in the different editions to different institutions, but all the products that we use, all the handbook that I will mention afterwards, we always share it on Creative Commons. And we are happy to say that at least to the best of our knowledge, we have 3 mentoring programs which have been happening in Spain, in 2 universities and in the Spanish Research Council, which have based or have started designing their program with all the documents and the resources that we have created as part of our implementation experience. Of course, then they have their own specificities. They may have some differences, but still we see that the work that we are doing is useful, of course, for the people who participate directly in the mentoring, but also sharing the experience is useful for the institutions in order to improve their resources for supporting their own researchers. So some details about 2020, the latest edition. One thing that I'm afraid that, especially for the researchers in the room, is that the program is already, we started this last edition. We opened the call for mentors back in October, for mentees in November. We matched them in December, and the program started on the 1st of January. So the program is currently running. It's not possible to participate, but we are quite certain that either through other European projects or as a activity, there will be further editions, but this is what has happened up until now. I've already mentioned that the mentors, the kind of profiles that we're looking for is people, professionals in the area of STEM, social sciences, and humanities that are doing something different from academic research. So they might be in an academic institution, but doing something which is not research. And we ask them to have some connection with R&D and I in order to have a closer understanding of what is the situation in which their mentee is currently facing. And in the side of the mentees, we decided to stick to early stage researchers, putting this limit of maximum 8 years after the obtention of the PhD. And we try to identify people who are actively interested in exploring opportunities outside of the traditional academic research academic profession. The way that we do the matching is quite, we always say that it's more a craft than a science. So we do a pre-selection of the mentors and the mentees. In the case of the mentors, basically, we just make let's say, a check that they have the right profile, because sometimes we might get people who want to very generously participate as mentors, but once you look at their CV, it's actually academic researchers. So that's basically the only reason why we might not accept a mentor. And then in the case of the mentees, as I said, during the registration process, we also have the registration forms actually out there for sharing in this Creative Commons license. We do a number of questions where we try to identify mentees who are in the best situation to take advantage of a mentoring program such as this one. So we have some things that we asked, some key questions that provide us a bit of information, of feeling of not only what they are interested in doing, but also how, let's say, how engaged they are in this eventual transition that they may face. And the matching process is basically done. I mean, once we have the ranking of the mentees and we have ensured that the mentors have the professional profiles we're looking for, basically nobody is removed from that list. But we try to find the best match possible through a couple of days and a couple of colleagues of FECIT checking all of this information and proposing pairs in order to set up these mentor-mentee dyads. I'm going to go very quickly just to not make it very long and because you will have the slides, but just for you to be aware of, as this is basically open to mostly to any country of Europe, but also with some participation from third countries. We try to keep a balance between the amount of applications that we receive and the amount of people who are finally accepted in the program. So these are the results from this year's selection, which, as I said, we did in December, just before Christmas. And basically, key message is that in terms of gender, both in mentors and mentees, you see that there's a bit of a majority of mentees, of women in both mentees and mentors. And finally, the ones that we have selected for participating, we have managed to keep more or less the same gender balance in terms of applications that we receive. The same applies in the case of disciplines. We ask, of course, the mentor, which is their background, and the mentees, what is their research area currently. And once again, based on the number of applications that we receive, based on the mentors available, to the best of our possibilities, we try to keep a little bit of balance between what we have received as applications and who we select. And finally, the same applies for the regional or geographical coverage. As I said, we still have a very strong Spanish flavor, and Spanish flavor means people who are located or currently working in Spain. It has nothing to do with the nationality. And as I said, this is quite normal because we have been doing, let's say, definitely more efforts than other road access colleagues who have not been working in the mentoring program directly in terms of providing visibility to the program. So as I said, we have mentors who have repeated basically in all editions. We have a number of mentees who have transitioned at some point and have become mentors now. But still, we try to send the message out there through the help of our road access colleagues. And we do have, although a majority of people in Spain, we do have a nice representation in the side of the mentors, but also in the side of the mentees coming from different countries. And last thing, has become a mentoring program, has become a very interesting tool or a very useful tool for us to try to look for collaborations with non-academic organizations. So basically, what we do, and you will have at some point there in the presentation the link to the current edition of the mentoring program in our national road access portal. There we acknowledge what we call the collaborating organizations, and these are organizations which provide several or at least one of the actions that you see there. They might help us in the most crucial part, which is looking for the mentors. So they act as an institution. They look actively within their institution in order to engage mentors within the institution. They help us with the promotion of the mentoring program, or they contribute somehow to the different events and trainings that we have within the program. And these are currently the confirmed collaborating organizations of this fourth Rebecca Mentoring Edition. What about the structure of the program? Basically, what we ask the people, the program, as I said, it has a starting date, which this year started on January 10th. It will have an ending date, which will be on June. And basically, it's 6 months in which we ask the people to meet mentor-mentee meetings. At least we try to convince them to have 6 meetings during these 6 months, meaning an average of one visit per month. The only rule that we provide is that we ask people to make contact once we introduce the mentors and the mentees by email. We ask people to have a first meeting, at least to know each other during the first month, because we have seen that those relationships which do not start at the beginning of the program, it's quite likely that eventually they will not work. So we tell them that this year we decided that we would put this rule that people had 1 month to have their first meeting with their pair, but afterwards they're more than free to set up the rest of the meeting as best as possible. So imagine the typical situation where the mentee might be writing his or her PhD thesis. So maybe the next February, March, and April, he or she will not be able to join. They're more than welcome to have the other 5 meetings between May and June to the best of their possibilities. And then one thing that we tell the mentees, of course, we provide a certificate of participating in the mentoring program, but this certificate, we will not provide it unless they meet 4 of those 6 times that we request them to do. And then we have some activities. It's not only about the meetings. We also plan a number of trainings, of networking activities. So the most important will be the trainings for the mentees, where we decided that during the 6 months, we would offer them 3 mandatory trainings, and a 4th training, which is not mandatory, but would still take place, and mentees will be able to participate, but still it's not an obligation. And I say this because also in order to try to keep, I mean, these trainings are more or less connected from planning your career at the very beginning of the mentoring, because we have seen that this helps with the relationship with the mentor, but also for the preparation of CV or LinkedIn, and we allowed them to choose one or the other. So the one with the majority of the support would be mandatory, and the other one would still take place, but would not be mandatory. And then we decided that in May, there would be another mandatory training, which would be open for them to choose. We did this during the kickoff meeting that took place, as I said, on the 10th of January. And this is the kind of feedback that we got from the mentees, the kind of things that we will try to organize in that 3rd meeting, depending on the availability of trainers that we have in our catalog. And the mentors, we do not forget about them. I mean, it's already generous enough, as I said, with space and altruism. It's already generous enough that they're willing to have these 6 meetings with their mentee, but still we want to provide them support, which is voluntary. So we also organize within the 1st month of the program, training on mentoring skills, because you have to keep in mind that here what we're looking for is people who are sharing their professional experience. Many of them have a very strong and developed mentoring experience, but some others might not. And this is also a key message when it comes to recruiting. They are expected basically to share their professional experience, nothing more than that. But of course, the more they know about mentoring skills, the better that they will be able to contribute to this relationship during the 6 months. And then we set up networking events, which are completely voluntary, both for the mentors and the mentees. So we have seen that some mentors are happy to participate in these networking events in order to meet other mentors and to exchange some things which might have worked well for them within their diet, or might have not worked so well and they might need some help. So for example, I don't know anything about, or I don't know what kind of key messages to provide in order to face a face-to-face interview. So this is the place where mentors can exchange their practices, and the same for the mentees. And then taking advantage of that nice pool of mentors from different sectors that we have, since the previous edition, we came up with this idea of putting together career panels. So here what we do is that we look among our mentors, those who are purely of industry, working in industry in those different positions that I said, of course in R&D, but maybe also in marketing and some other management positions, and the same for the case of the public sector. And the idea behind this voluntary career panels is that mentees have the possibility of learning the professional profiles of other mentors beyond their assigned mentor. This is a little bit in a view, the kind of how the program runs during the 6 months. So we have the trainings there in blue, we have the career panels in pink, and the networking events in yellow. So you can see that it's not only about the meetings, but this helps also keeping, let's say, the community engaged, because you have to keep in mind that being an international endeavor and being many of the pairs being international pairs, most of the mentoring program takes place only online. There is no possibility of meeting face to face. Some practicalities, and this is the kind of information that we put in our different editions of the Rebecca mentoring, and that you can check through the hub link that I showed you before. You can access this information and use it if you're an institution or a support service that are thinking and doing something similar. Our jewel of the crown is the Rebecca Handbook, which is basically the instruction book for participating in the mentoring program. But we also try to foster the preparation of a career development plan and this year, we included a new innovative approach, which we call the meeting logbook, because as this happens online, the conversations within the pairs are completely confidential, which is, let's say, a key element of any mentoring program. But we do want to be aware as coordinators and managers of the program that activities are happening. So what you don't want to find yourself is that on May, you get an email from the mentee who tells you, I've tried to contact my mentor 1,000 times and never got a reply, or the other way around, which also happens. So we came up with this meeting logbook, which I will show you afterwards. Very quickly, the handbook. We include all the basics of the information, basically everything that I've been telling you about, what we're trying to do, what you should try to attempt during the relationship with your pair, do's and don'ts within the mentoring program. But the most important part is that we suggest a number of topics which they can talk about, which because of the literature, because of our experience, we think are relevant conversations that should be addressed when talking about a professional transition from academic research career to other professional settings. So for each of these topics that you can see there, I mean, some of them are quite obvious. So key hard skills, key soft skills, professional career aspirations, and so on. In the handbook, we include some key questions in terms of previous thinking. We suggest a potential goal that they could use in their meetings, the meetings within the pairs, and some key questions that they can address during the discussion. This is done as a suggestion, and the idea is that we provide them food for thought in order to not run out of the conversation. But depending on the relationship of the mentee and the mentor and the profiles and the interests of one and the other, you might want to focus only on talking about skills, for example, and that's perfectly fine. Again, this is completely up to the pairs how they want to do it. From our side, in order to have a successful relationship, what we do is that we provide as much food for thought as they have in order to not ever run out of a potential conversation. If they want to use it afterwards or not, it's completely up to them. And the dynamic. We ask people to think before the session to think about what they would like to do, to some guidelines about what to do during the session, identifying next steps for the following session, and of course, keeping the actions. And this is basically the dynamic that we're looking for within each of those 6 meetings that we ask people to do. A view of the career plan, which as I said, you can download and check it out. It's at the end, it's a template where we invite or we encourage mentees to use it because it's a way of actually collecting all the information that they will be getting out of the conversations with his or her mentor. And as I said, we added this logbook, which we used to do through Google Forms, but it turned out to be quite messy. So as part of the registration process of the people selected for the mentoring program, we have added a tool, which is basically a very easy way for the mentees and the mentors. Normally, this is a work that the mentees would do. They can sort of check mark that my first meeting has happened, my second meeting has happened, my third meeting has happened. It will also allow us to keep track of the people who participate in the trainings in order to prepare the certificates. And basically, from our side as administrators, we just see very simple information just to be informed or to be aware that activity is happening within the pairs. Because if we identify a pair that is not having any kind of activity, then we might need to take action to check if there's anything we can do in order to support this relationship. And this is the end, I promise. Some add-ons. I mentioned already that as part of the hub, we have this idea of the online community of researchers or institutions or organizations interested in this transition. But we also use LinkedIn in a closed group, which we use during the mentoring program. So at the beginning of the mentoring period, we invite all the mentors and mentees to become members of this closed LinkedIn group. We also have we have been using this LinkedIn group basically since the 2nd edition. So we also have some of the participants of the past edition. And again, this is yet another potential resource for further networking beyond the limits of the pair, mentor-mentee, that the participants have. And of course, as I said, the wider showcase page, which is the Euraxis Rebecca community, which is completely open and is where we publish all kinds of news related directly with the mentoring. So for example, we have used the career panels also to provide some articles or posts related with working in the public sector, working in industry. We've done that in previous editions and we will do it afterwards. But here also our Euraxis colleagues share any other information which has to do again with transitioning to non-academic research settings. And that would be all from the part of the program. which I probably gone too long. And now I leave the floor to Svetlana to speak about another mentoring program that we also have running in
Sorry,
that sense.
Xavi, can we interrupt here because we received 3-4 questions? Perhaps it's more efficient to answer this question now.
Yeah.
The first one is Mrs. Sandra Toni Dandel from Brazil would like to know if you can present some examples of opportunities in the industry for a researcher in education.
I mean, as specific as that, I'm afraid not, because of course I don't know the settings within Brazil, but hopefully with the resources that we have shown there and the upcoming tool of Rebecca Practice, you might have a hint, or the idea behind those tools is basically to understand what professional settings are out there and what is required. So obviously this would be part of the second step of learning what's out there. But what you're asking me for is basically the third step, which would be about taking action and looking for the direct industry. And again, I mean, here it's a matter of trying to build your network, or maybe trying to get some kind of institutional support in a program similar to Rebecca. So this is quite difficult. I understand that you would like to get a direct reply, but I mean, understand me, it's something very difficult to do.
Okay, Mrs. Marie Kersbaum asked if you arrange internships in industry for researcher.
We do not, we meaning FEFIT, we are not doing it, but here I'm going to leave the floor. Maybe Svetlana wants to mention a little bit, because we know that this would be sort of the next step that would be needed. So Rebecca would be a first, let's say, more on the exploration, know what's out there, and taking action, which would be, again, like in the case of Brazil, doing the transition through internships. We understand that it's a very important step. But there are some, I mean, in the case of Spain, for example, there are some legal burdens that we do not know how to, let's say, overcome, which is that, I mean, internships, informal internships are not, I'm putting it very bluntly, informal internships are not legally possible for a company. So they either recruit or they don't have to recruit. Nevertheless, I mean, it's a very valuable opportunity. And some of our colleagues, such as Svetlana, they have been tackling these internships, although kind of in a pilot and in a more discreet, or in a more, let's say, how do you say this? In a more, for a specific pool of researchers.
Okay. Mrs. Karen Verkamen asked to know how the mentoring scheme was arranged in practice in terms of visits, regular conversation, model of conversation. I think that you answered already this question.
Yes, but
Yes.
I think I somehow provided some details of how we do it, but basically, as I said, first we open the call for mentors first. So we understand which is the pool of mentors that we have, and based on that, we open the call for mentees, also saying that we will be able to admit a maximum of whatever number of mentees to manage decisions. And then, as I said, once we set the pairs together, by default, the meetings within the pairs are online, because as I said, many of these pairs are actually located in different countries. But then we use all of these activities that I mentioned, the trainings for the mentees, which a couple of them are mandatory, the trainings for the mentors, which are absolutely voluntary, and then networking opportunities, either through events or through platforms. And this is how we run it. And eventually we dream about having at some point a whole bunch of money and maybe bringing together all the Rebecca mentoring alumni, physically in some place, but that I'm not sure that will be really viable.
Yes. The next question, again from Karen, but it's not so clear for me. How was the mentoring process supported? She means, I don't know, Karen, do you mean from the point of view of a feed, from the point of view of mentors? It's not so clear for me. If Xavi, you can understand better how.
Yes, I think I understand the question, because this is, I mean, unfortunately, it's something which happens. I mean, it's it's not completely uncommon that somebody working in a PhD gets from his or her PhD supervisor this idea that you shouldn't be doing anything else than working on your academic career. So publishing your papers, writing your thesis, and so on. And some mentees actually do not feel, they need to hide that they're participating in the mentoring program. This is a sad reality. And as I said, I think it doesn't happen to the majority of the people, but it does happen. So that's why one of the key messages when we talk about how do you say this, about privacy, or about not publishing or not understanding the conversation, it also has to do with this. So we do not provide, let's say, detailed information of who are the mentees or who are the mentors, because as I said, sometimes the mentees find themselves in an awkward situation where they feel that what they are doing through the mentoring program is stealing time from what they should be doing in their academic career. And we hope to also break out these dynamics somehow through these conversations, because I think at the end of the day, I think these are completely complementary. So one thing that we also say is that, and I showed you the short-term impact about key elements that we asked them, but we also posed another question, which I didn't share in this presentation, but I told another presentation. We asked mentees about their intentions of leaving academia. And curiously enough, there we do not see a change. So people who participate in the mentoring, they might be aware that at some point they might need to change from academia because they will run out of opportunities or get tired, but it's not their plan immediately. And actually, that's another reason also to select them. So we see that people who are still thinking about, as a plan A, having an academic research career, their intentions of leaving academia doesn't change during the mentoring program, which I think this has also an important message, because at the end, as I said, for a matter of numbers, you should provide, as an academic institution, you should provide this kind of support to your researchers. But then at the same time, you're not interested in being yourself the one who pushes people out of the academic world. And we think that with this program, we have this balance more or less taken care of.
And Mr. Carlos Martirena asked to give him, in the case of early stage researcher doing a PhD, please give me a tip to manage the relation between the thesis director and the industrial mentor without trouble.
Yeah, that
Yes.
was a little bit the topic on which I
Yes.
was
Yes.
touching right now. And as I said, I think there is an important piece of information, which is that one thing doesn't remove the other. So the fact that you are more empowered or have more knowledge about your professional potential doesn't mean that you are going to make the change. So you might be a better researcher, you might be better in your academic research, if you have in mind which are the other ways that you can continue. So it shouldn't be a clash between one thing and the other. But as I said, we are still quite discreet. We are quite discreet, or we do not disclose the name of the participants in the program in order to avoid these kinds of issues, which, as I said, might not be the most common situation, but we know that it happens.
Okay, Xavi, that's all. First, Svetlana, can you inform Mrs. Merv Arka where she can visit you in Sofia, Bulgaria? And after then, you can proceed with your presentation. She is currently a PhD student in Sofia University. Yes, she's born and raised Germany. Her origin is Turk, and she would like to meet people to expand her social network. So you are very close, as I imagine. Yes.
Yes. Thank you very
Okay.
much, Foutini. Thank you very much, Javi, for this amazing presentation and
Yes.
this amazing progress that you did with Rebecca, because it's really very difficult to coordinate program and to progress with it. But you still made amazing progress with offering every next round of Rebecca. To the researcher from Sofia University, thank you very much for joining Sofia University. And please send me an email. You'll have my email in the presentation, and we will arrange a personal meeting with you. Thank you again. And let me now share the presentation that I prepared for today. And oops, do you see it now?
Yes.
In slideshow model?
Yes, it works.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So back to what Javi said in his first part, his first presentation about the career path of researchers. This is indeed a very interesting observation that practically all the researchers, when they start their PhD, they dream about career in academia, and many of those later on, when they move outside of academia, they still feel kind of not very happy about that, they were prepared for academic career, and this is true. The PhD programs prepare researchers for academic career, and many of those that find themselves in a path to change the direction and to move to another sector, they feel like they're not prepared, and for this reason we have Rebecca. But still, some of them remain in academia, and especially in their first stage, when they are still in the PhD study, it's very important to support them, first thing, to develop well as a researcher, and second thing, to have not only basic idea that it is possible to move outside of academia, but also to have a very clear idea on the opportunities that they have, not only in academia. So in this very stage of so-called early career stage of researchers, that they are still PhD students, and early postdocs, when they did not decide yet what to do in their next step, this is very important to have another type of mentoring. And this is exactly what we do in the mentoring program, Shape the Future of a Researcher Coming to Europe. This is actually the how I move the slides. This is exactly the title of the program that was created at the beginning 3 years ago within another project, as Javi mentioned, within project led by CERT in Greece, and Fotini was there too. Then it was created as a very small pilot idea for not more than 10 couples. And we intended to explore the opportunity to create further something more elaborated. But from the very beginning, it proved to be, how to say, self-sustainable. The program was so successful that it continued running throughout other projects up to now, and it is a decision of our management to keep it permanently open no matter whether it is engaged in another project or no, because it became a program not only for the researchers coming to Europe, but also for the researchers working in Europe, having their PhD study in Europe, and to support the networking of researchers on a global level. So in order to join to the program as a mentor, you would, because all the, as just like in Rebecca, all the actions and activities are on volunteer basis, and it is open for people who would like to contribute to the future of the research community as a whole. They must have some idea on the benefits that they will get through this program. So what are the benefits for the mentor? First thing, these are more experienced researchers in academia, and the first opportunity that we give them with this program is to share their knowledge and experience. Then through this program, they could develop their skills of mentoring and coaching through engagement with the mentees, and to develop their skills of communication, to develop also their skills of inspiring people in their further steps. Also, they receive personal satisfaction through this communication with mentees from different regions, from different research systems, and they continue cooperation with them after the program or current mentorship is finished. And they also learn new perspectives by working with those people with different backgrounds. What about the benefits for the mentees? I see one Cyrillic letter here. It is on the keyboard. It is on the same button that is the same key that is S. So this is a Cyrillic sign for character for this button. So benefits for the mentees. Although everyone would say that they are obvious, communicating with more experienced researchers in their research area is, of course, out of doubts that it is beneficial for young researchers. But what they do when they are at the PhD study and soon after they defend their PhD thesis, they communicate mostly with their PI. With their PI, they discuss their research topic, they discuss the next steps and things like that. But in most of the cases, their PI is very busy and do not have time to explain general things about research, general things about research career and things like that. So with this mentor here in this program, they have the opportunity to discuss details about topics that are of their interest, because it's honestly said a huge stress when you start your PhD first year, especially. You have so many questions. You are kind of in a new world, and from you are expected a lot of stuff, and you don't know who to ask about small questions and different things that you're interested to learn about. So learning is about first benefit for the mentees. They learn not only about their own research system, but also about other research system in other countries. Okay, in Europe, the research systems are more or less similar, but in other countries, yes, someone is coming to make a PhD or early postdoc here in Europe, and they don't know anything about that. So it's helpful thing to start with a mentor in this fully free program and to learn a lot. Developing skills is also very important for early career stage researchers. Communication and presenting skills are really key skills for the researchers, and by this program, by communication with the mentor and presenting their own research to the mentor and their own ideas, they start gaining these skills and perfect them by the end of the program, of course. Enlarging their own network of researchers that they communicate with, that they could cooperate on, is also out of doubt. Just to give you an idea, what about enlarging of the network means here. They first, at the first meeting, they start communicating with their mentor. But then it comes that there are several already joint articles published, and they decide to publish a joint article. Okay, they start working on the article, but soon after they see that practically they might invite also other authors because they could contribute to the topic and to develop the topic in detail. So this is it: projects, joint articles, joint events, conferences, and other type of cooperation is a fact through this program. So just to give you kind of an idea what are the numbers in the program. There are currently registered a bit more than 1,100 researchers from all over the world, 200, close to 230 mentors, and already 250 couples get matched to the program, either finished or currently in work. Visitors of the program website are out of questions indeed from all over the world. We have only few countries, as you can see, that in practice, that did not visit our program. We also, just like Rebecca, we have a LinkedIn group where we discuss. It is open for everyone, not only for the members of the program, but whoever is interested. There are members from policymakers, from other type of stakeholders that also join this group, and where we publish information, we publish backgrounds of our new mentors joined in the program, etc. So you are more than welcome also to join it. And as we said, we have benefits, clear benefits. They are listed on the website as well. But apart from skills development and connections, we also get, as we said, insight on how the research systems and specific organizations, what is the organizational culture, how it works, and we also facilitate the transnational mobility. Through learning in this program, you may find how and where your next mobility could be done. And what is most important is, this is kind of a tip that I offer here, what to do when you would like to join, no matter whether you are a mentor or a mentee, but for mentees is much more relevant because usually it is expected that mentees have to be more active. So you go on this link, you press the button register, you fill in all the details that are in the registration form, and what? You expect that practically the system, because there is this opportunity available, the system will find for you a perfect match and you wait. This is not a very good approach. Yes, there is such opportunity, you can wait, but waiting is not something that will help you to find a mentor or a mentee. You have to actively search and invite. This is done through the internal instrument, search engine, safe search functionality of the engine, and visiting the profiles of other researchers registered in their mentors or mentees. And here is a short look on how it looks like from inside, because those that are not registered, of course, do not have access to this search engine. And if you look for a mentor, you just press this, choose this parameter and press the button search, and you may also save the search. When you found something that is more or less relevant for you as a mentor, then you press the name and you visit the mentor profile. When you visit it, you have the opportunity to go through all the details. This is only part of them. On the website, this is a quite longer page. So you see also the topics that they are available to mentor you and things like that. Also their research profile in other research networks so that you can see their publications, etc. So once you're convinced that this is your mentor, you just press the request mentorship button. So how it goes through our program? It starts with entering as a mentee, then you find a mentor. Finally, through this mentorship, you make a next step in your career. Then you get assistance, and at the end, you become someday a mentor yourself. And we return to the starting point in another role as a mentor. So do not forget that it is a successful activity when it is both sides are active, meaning that both sides would like to find a mentor, would like to find a mentee, and would like to actively contribute to the whole process of mentoring. And of course, it's a win-win situation. At the end, you both benefit. And through this, all researchers, not only mentees, all researchers advance faster. And this opens the doors to the networking and the cooperation, as I gave you an example, and make a better career choice. Practically, this mentoring program, just like Rebecca, all these kind of supporting of researchers each other, builds the global research community. And you please promote our program through your contacts. Thank you very much. Here are the links where you can write us or join our group or join the program yourself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Svetlana, for the interesting presentation. And now we are looking forward to hear Xavi for the tips concerning how to launch successful mentoring scheme and how to implement it. Thank you. The floor is yours, Xavi.
Yes, thank you. And also congratulations to you, Svetlana. Amazing number in the program. Okay, so as I said, I probably mixed a little bit some of the content. So I would like to think that, especially through the presentation of Rebecca mentoring, and of course through the presentation of the mentoring program run by the Sofia University, let's say that institutions have, or those of you who might be participating in this webinar as institution or as a support service, thinking of designing something similar or thinking about some kind of mentoring for your researchers, you might have heard of things that are working nicely for us in our experience. And in this last presentation, what I would like to do is focus a little bit more on the relationship itself, so on the people. So either if you happen to end up as a mentor within a formal program, or maybe as in an informal setting, or as a mentee in the same way, participating in a formal program or not. So this last part is more about the key messages or the key things to have in mind when it comes to a mentoring relationship between a mentor and a mentee. So let me see if I can do this, and here we go. Hopefully, yeah, presentation mode. So what is mentoring? Maybe we should have started with this at the beginning of the program, but we also had to talk about how each of us, Svetlana and myself, have reached to this point within the Access Initiative. So what is mentoring? Well, it's a relationship between a mentor and a mentee, or between a mentor with several mentees. I mean, there are different approaches possible, but it's a relationship at the end of the day, which, regardless of the shape that it has or the number of people involved, is based on trust, which is a key word of if you are thinking to become engaged in a mentoring relationship. And this relationship based on trust actually is aimed at least in the realm of what we are doing, both from the side of the mentoring program presented by Svetlana and from ours, is to provide career support. But also, and there we have to be a little bit careful with this, also about providing some psychosocial support to the mentees. And here I say, I mean, I will mention afterwards, what do I mean with psychosocial support? Because if we go maybe to things that have to do some kind of mentoring or something which has to do, for example, with mental health and things like that, we might be talking about very serious issues which need actually from professional support. So again, we are talking about the framework of these relationships, which are aimed at mostly providing career support. But psychosocial support is also an important element to keep in mind, even in these relationships. And what is not mentoring? I think that it's equally important, or even more important, than the definition of what a mentoring is. So one thing that we provide, or we try to highlight very much in the kickoff meetings before introducing the mentors to the mentees and vice versa, is that the mentee is not a pupil. I mean, it's he or her, the mentee, is a professional with less experience, but it's a professional. It's not a pupil of the mentor. Another important thing is that mentoring is not about job seeking. Somebody asked about the possible internships. And as I said, I mean, a very natural and nice connection would be that you have a mentoring program. And then on top of that, you further reinforce what you learn in the mentoring program through an offer of internships. But these things need to be put apart. So one important thing that we tell and we try to identify in the registrations of our mentees is that the mentor is not a headhunter. So it's not a potential, he or her is not a potential employer. And then, as I said, related to this psychosocial support, one, especially in the side of the mentors, they need to be, he or she needs to be aware of the limitations. So they are not psychotherapists, although we do have some mentors who are actually psychotherapists, but this is a minority. So as a mentor, you're not a psychotherapist or a career counselor. So you need to have very focused conversations. And in order to try to be effective, the key is the management of expectations and reaching an agreement of what the conversations are going to happen within the relationship between mentor and mentee. What about the key skills? I include there a couple of asterisks mentioning some of the skills, but things they are let's say they are pretty much straightforward. So both on the side of the mentors and the mentees, there should be some level of self-awareness and metacognition in order to have a successful mentoring relationship. They also have to be the possibility of working independently and taking perspective from the other person's experience or necessities. Obviously, a key relational competence is active listening. So being able to listen as a mentor to what are the concerns of the mentees, what they would like to do. And of course, the other way around, once the mentor provides the feedback or shares the experience in relation to the topic which might be of interest of the mentee, it's also on the side of the mentees a responsibility of having an active listening. Should avoid being judgmental. Sometimes just being there is actually quite successful. And as I said, I mean, when we start getting doubts about people who are thinking, well, I don't know if I'm going to be an appropriate mentor and so on, this is some of the key messages that we provide to the mentors, that it's, in the case of Rebecca, it's about sharing your experience in the transition, nothing more, nothing less. I mean, if you have the experience of other things which are useful, then of course you can build upon that. But the starting point is sharing the professional experience. You also need, in the relationship, you also need to manage the anxiety of uncertainty, which happens. I mean, when the mentee starts, normally when they're thinking about a possible transition, there's probably a lot of uncertainty around it. And this is something that will eventually come up during the relationship. And then it's important to have a bit of holistic thinking. And this is quite important in the case of our mentoring program, but I'm sure it would apply to any others. Because we try in that craft that I mentioned, when we put together the pairs, we take into consideration many factors, including the scientific backgrounds that they may have. But sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes we decide that maybe the interest of the mentee, of the potential non-academic sector that they would like to explore, is more important than the background that the mentor in that sector has. So it's important to keep this holistic thinking on the table. So sometimes you might not be able to directly relate to what, as a mentee, to what the mentor is telling you from his or her experience, or as a mentor from the expectations of the mentees. So it's important to try to have this holistic views. And of course, social skills and emotional regulation. So this is something that needs to be put on the table since the very beginning of any mentoring relationship. It's something that we got to get the participants of any mentoring program, mentors and mentees, aware of, that this is towards what they should be working in terms of relational competences. As I said, trust is the essence of any mentoring program. So how is trust built between a mentor and a mentee? First one, confidentiality and creating security. A mentoring relationship needs to be a safe space. If not, it's not going to work. So the mentee should feel entitled, again, with those restrictions that I was mentioning before, that you have to remember that this person is not a headhunter. That person might not be able to provide you with psychotherapeutical support. But in any case, you have to be to remain confidential in the conversations that you have, and create a safe space where mentors and mentees can speak openly. The more the confidentiality and the more security that is felt within the relationship, the better that the mentoring relationship would be. And one one essential practical issue that is important in this area, as I put it there, is that you need to keep your promises. As I said, we try to convince people to have this during their 6 meetings, to do this periodic exercise of planning what they would like to do in the next session. If there are some commitments which are put there that you're going to go out and look for some LinkedIn profiles in this area which you are interested in, and the next conversation come, you need to keep those promises. You need to make commitments, and you need to keep your promises as a participant in a mentoring relationship. And as I said, expectations. People have to be very aware. I mean, you as a mentee might be looking for something, and your mentor might not be able to provide you that support or that feedback as detailed or as rich as you would like to, because he or her doesn't have an experience in that field. So the way to avoid any kind of, let's say, negative reactions which go against this idea of building trust within the mentoring pair has to do with setting these intentions and expectations at the very beginning, which, for example, also has to do with this a mandatory element that we added in this last edition, which was that we obliged everybody to at least speak once within the month after being introduced to each other. Because if you let time go by, this becomes more and more difficult to make it happen. As you can see there, alignment of expectations is basically the key for building trust. What about the goals? You have to be careful with the identification of goals, because the goals have to be created or have to be reflected and decided by the mentees. So as a mentor, the idea is that based on your experience, on your knowledge, you are going to be providing some food for thought in order for the mentees to set the goals. It's not the role of the mentors to set the goals of the mentees. So it should be the mentee saying, look, this is what my situation, this is what I think that I will be needing to do, and this is what I would like to explore how to do it. And then the mentor will help in the best way possible. So the mentor can help in discussing and explaining the rationale of the steps and the goals in order to follow the career based on his or her experience. Of course, as a person which has more experience, in the case of Rebecca, in this non-academic professional setting, he or her might be more informed about the possible resources that the mentee can use based on the goals that he or she sets. And the idea with the mentor is that they should support, again, connected to this relational skill, the competence that I mentioned before about the holistic view. A key role of the mentor is trying to get the mentee to get perspective. So again, a very simple and almost silly example. Maybe somebody's thinking like, okay, I'm going to be leaving the lab and I want to go to a pharma company where I want to work in the R&D department. Well, maybe the idea is that the mentor, if he or she has an experience in the pharma industry already, which would be quite a normal setup of the pairs that we have in Rebecca, the idea is providing this wider view that, okay, that's fine. It's perfectly fine if you want to go for the R&D, but are you aware that there are other things that you can do within the pharma industry? I mean, there is some work which has to do, maybe one which initially is not so appealing, which is kind of more on the marketing side, but you also need a lot of let's say, research or scientific knowledge in order to do that work. So again, helping and trying to get this wide picture as a mentor with the mentee. And in the case of psychosocial support, as I said, I mean, the mentor cannot be a psychotherapist to the mentee, but still there are some key, let's say, basic elements that you should keep in mind. I mean, positive feedback. It's important to support the mentee and to keep it, let's say, on the optimistic side, praising accomplishments, understanding, again, active listening, understanding the mentee's challenge, and being open about the experience as a potential role model for what the mentee is looking for. And on the side of the mentee, you should never forget about, as a mentee, to provide appreciation and also give that positive feedback to the mentor, which is quite important. And also, I mean, particularly if this feedback has to do with an effect of taking the advice or using the experience of provided by the mentor and taking a positive step towards the aim set by the mentee. Be sure to also inform back to the mentor of how this is helpful. So this is let's say a bilateral. Again, it's not a mentor. It's not let's say a teacher-pupil relationship, but it's a two-way relationship. And the last thing is that mentoring relationships, by definition, should be defined in time. And because there are a number of steps which normally are part of a mentoring relationship. The first one is about building the relationship itself. Then it's about exchanging the information and co-creating these goals. As I said, the goals need to be set by the mentee, but they can be tailored based on the experience or the feedback or the experience of the mentor, and working together towards the goals established. And at some point, this formal mentoring relationship should finalize. I mentioned before that we are quite happy to see that many mentees plan to keep in contact with their mentors, and this is perfectly fine, and it's positive because it's part also of increasing your professional network, but then it's not going to be the same relationship as within the mentoring. So it's not going to be with these meetings and with these plans because as I said, formally speaking, a mentoring relationship should start at one point and should end up at some point. It should be limited in time. Maybe 6 months, which is the duration of Rebecca, is not enough, depending on the pair. So it can go on for a longer time. But at some point, the mentoring relationship should come to an end. And I mentioned the commitment. The commitment is obviously on both sides. And I'm repeating here a few key ideas of the commitment that we ask our mentors and mentees in the programs to commit to. The first one is about the confidentiality, but as I said, it's confidentiality about the conversations themselves, because let's say from the side of the marketing part of Rebecca, we are more than happy to hear, I'm a Rebecca mentor and I'm repeating, or I've been a Rebecca mentee and so on, but we do not want to know anything about the conversations happening within the pairs. We also, all those pieces that I showed you that we put together, the kickoff meeting, the mandatory training, the voluntary trainings, the networking events, and so on, we put them there because, as I said, it's a very nice way of trying to keep a community engaged, as this is mainly based on an online relationship. And the follow-up of what is happening in the mentor. Ideally, if you want to, you're managing a program which is restricted in time, like the case of Rebecca with this launching day, closed launching day, and a closed session, a closed closing date. You need to keep in mind, you need to find a way of actually being aware that the activity is happening. So how do we do that? I already mentioned that this year we have the logbook, but then we come up regularly with surveys. So regarding the networks, the trainings, and so on, because that also helps us in order to advance and do, let's say, fine tweaks and some adaptations of the program. And this, of course, would be commitments for both parts. But in the side of the mentee, we also make another clear, let's say, a clear distinction. And it's on the side of the mentees to, let's say, be the most proactive part. So it should be the mentee who should make sure that they close the date for the next meeting. It should be the mentee who should propose the topics that he or she wants to talk about. Although, as I said, this goes bilaterally, and at the end, you might fine-tune together between the mentor of the mentee exactly that topic, how you're going to approach it in the most efficient way. But still, it's on the side of the mentees to trigger that discussion. And then the mentees also have this commitment of participate a bit more of burden in terms of having more mandatory elements in the program, because at the end of the day, again, we believe it's a bilateral learning process. So the mentors, and actually in the feedback surveys that we get, mentors also learned through the relationship of the mentees. But at the end of the day, it's the mentees who are there to move forward in their professional career. And I think that was all that I had as key messages in terms of my mentoring relationships. If anybody has any questions regarding these things or the practicalities of the program, which I gone over in the previous presentation, then I'm more than happy to attend any queries.
Okay, I can't see any question on the chat. Please feel free to raise your hand and to tell your questions. Because on the chat there are not, there are only congratulations to both for your interesting presentation and the interesting work that you do.
Thank you, everybody. I hope I did not bore you to death because as my colleagues Fotini and Svetlana know, I can speak of Rebecca like forever.
Yes. Miss Natalie is very interesting in the first part of the first talk of Xavi. And okay, the majority of participants would like to have the presentation. I'll manage that because I have the email of the registrants and in another case, I managed to find some others who didn't register, so I have sent already. I'll manage with that. Okay, they need, yes, the links of the presentation. And also, I would like to repeat that the recording will be available on the Euraxis portal, and you'll be informed about that by email. And please don't forget to share your opinion concerning this webinar on the link which I will forward again to you. I really very appreciate your efforts, Xavi and Svetlana, presenting us that amazing work that you did, and which means and includes a lot of efforts in order to reach this success. And we are looking forward for the next occasion to learn about the progress achieved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.